Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. In today's video, we're going to apologize for the 100th time about not uploading. Then we're going to listen to some creepy audio. We're going to listen to that creepy audio, lights are going to flicker in the house, and then we're going to do absolutely nothing to handle the situation. And then at the end of the recording, we're going to scream and cry about it, and then just die. And that's going to be how it goes. So anywho, welcome back. I apologize for not uploading. It was a busy 2 weeks, and spring break came and went, and I didn't have time to really do anything. Then my headphones just broke when I got home, so I'm going to edit this video with one headphone in, so that's going to be fun. But we're back. Undertone came out over the weekend. Was going to make a video that was an out-of-theater reaction, but then I was like, you know what? I want to watch it again in Dolby Atmos, so I watched it again, and now I'm here to talk about it. So, if you're new around here and you don't know, I am on a journey to watch every single 2026 release that I can get my hands on. You can find the list of all of them that I'm currently ranking them down in the description as I'm on this journey. And I skipped February for my recaps. I did a January recap of all of the movies I watched. I skipped February. I am going to do the Q1 recap at the end of this month, so stay tuned for that. I wanted to wait because I didn't really watch that much in February and felt like it would be better to just do the first quarter and wrap it up there. And we'll do that for every quarter. But regardless, welcome back. Time to talk about Undertone. Let's just jump right into it. So, Undertone. Going into it, I was under the impression this movie was very scary because a lot of the reviews said it was very scary, but also because I was very excited for this movie. It was in my top 10 most anticipated of the year, especially because the trailer came out of nowhere in like early January, maybe late December, and kind of shocked me when it came out. Like I watched it and I thought it was a pretty creepy, well done trailer. So going into the movie, I was very excited about what I was going to get. I was expecting probably a 4-star. My initial thoughts was that it was going to be very scary but not have a very strong plot. And for the most part, that is precisely what you get. The plot is pretty paper thin for the most part. They try and do kind of this sinister thing where there's like this mystery of like constant murders and stuff happening, but they don't really tie it all together all that nicely, and I'll get into that when we get into the negatives. But for the most part, they try and do this sinister thing, and it doesn't fully work, but it's decent enough to carry the plot. And as for the scares, the audio design is absolutely masterclass and does a great job at being scary. But I will say, once you have experienced the movie the first time, the second watch especially, there is minimal rewatch value in this movie. The sound design is not nearly creepy enough to carry the suspense or the thrill of the movie for multiple consecutive watches at least. Maybe if I let it linger for like 2 years and came back to it and picked it up, I'd be like, wow, that did scare me, especially because, I'll watch it with headphones in or whatever. But just, watched it 2 days after in Dolby Atmos, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it was, I would say, audio-wise, obviously it was better, but it was not fundamentally as interesting, or definitely lacked the rewatch value to make me need to ever go see it again beyond that second watch. So let's get into the positives, the stuff that I did like about it, and that audio design is the main big positive. They do a really, really good job with pretty much all of the audio work, whether it be the simple stuff of when she puts her headphones on, and when the main girl puts her headphones on and the audio completely cuts out, whether it be the ticking clock with the loud bass thumping in the background, whatever it may be, they do a really, really good job of elevating the sound design to make the atmosphere very creepy in the movie. And it works very well with a lot of the very minimalist visuals, especially with the camera work. Mind you, this is a directorial debut, so I thought this was pretty great for that. They use the camera work very eloquently to have shots where it makes you want to look at these dark corners, but there's actually nothing there, and the focus is still on the main lady as she's using her laptop. So you'll get these nice camera angles where the main focal point will be more towards the edge of the camera, and these dark passageways, corners, hallways, whatever they may be, will be in center frame, and it'll make you want to investigate that further and look. And they do this very nicely where they do it a lot so that it kind of removes your expectation of what you're going to see in those dark corners. But that's part of the impact of the rewatch problem, because when you already know there's not really anything there, you're not really looking anymore. That being said, on first watch, though, it's very effective, and they do a good job of putting the scares in very non-obvious places. Like, there was one scare, I went to see this one with my dad on opening night, and there was one scare where there was a lady standing in a mirror, and he completely missed it, and I saw it, and I thought that was one of the best scares in the whole movie. So they do a good job of having these scares that are very, like, well put throughout the frame and very hard to miss, but also like kind of in your face at the same time, and it's well done. But that's kind of all I have for the big positive. Oh, actually, the last positive I want to say is the ending. Mainly the last 5 minutes of the movie. The last 5, maybe 10 minutes of the movie are by far the strongest that this movie has to offer. They keep you on the edge of your seat for a majority of the movie up to that point, and as soon as you get to the ending, the climax is very effective, despite the actual ending, the last, literally like the last like 10-second chunk of the movie being some of the weakest material that the movie does have to offer. The build up to it is quite fantastic. And that transitions us into the mixed, and that is the plot of the movie. I think, in general, the plot has a lot of holes that I'll get to in the negatives that mainly make it in this category. But in terms of the stuff that just makes it meh, it feels like a bit of a ripoff of Sinister in a significantly less interesting way. I personally liked the idea of a podcast horror movie. I think you can use audio design to make really, really creepy stuff. But when you don't have any visual elements to back up any of your audio to do anything effective with it, and you fundamentally have a movie where you just have a woman walk around a house with not much happening other than spooky sounds, you lose a little bit of that effect and kind of just become redundant with your things happening. On top of that, back to the plot, you have, like I said, the very Sinister-esque plot going on here, and they don't do a great job of connecting all of the dots. There's a lot of jumps in logic and conclusions that don't really make any sense, and we just kind of get to a point, especially in regards to Justin as a character, and I'll talk about him in a minute, good lord, but he just jumps to so many conclusions that make literally no sense at the moment, and then things just happen and he's always right. So you kind of have this character that is pushing the plot forward by arbitrary constraints, and it doesn't really feel all that cathartic, especially on a second watch when you can see through it. Plus, some of the dialogue is insanely terrible. Okay, and that brings me into the negatives, because I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off. The characters are pretty bad in this movie. Justin is the co-host. I guess he is the host of the podcast, and Evelyn is the co-host, but Justin is the guy on the phone the whole movie who is in the podcast with Evelyn, and the entire time that he is doing anything, he jumps to massive conclusions and somehow recognizes, like in a bunch of gibberish, mind you, he reverses gibberish, and he can recognize the name of an ancient demon from the beginning of the Bible that nobody has ever heard of in a million centuries. How does he know that? But mind you, it's the same guy who also doesn't know about a murder in his hometown. Like, come on, movie. Really? So, that frustrated me. The 2 podcast hosts who do a true crime podcast don't know about a murder that happened in their own hometown. Really? Like, come on. And then it's also heavily implied that maybe it takes place in the same house or near the same house that Evelyn used to live in. Like, come on, really? But anywho, so that's just one massive logical gap that happens with Justin's character. Now let's talk about Evelyn's character. If I was Evelyn, all right, and I listened to some creepy audio and then reversed the audio and did in fact hear the name of an ancient demon that, mind you, I still don't know how she knows exists, but heard that name and thought it was creepy, and then right after I heard it, lights started flickering in my house, faucets turned on their own, and my mother, who hasn't spoken in months, started doing Hail Marys in her sleep, I would not stay in that house. Not a second. Not a second more. First time the light turns on its own and I actually witness it, when she goes into that bedroom with her mother and the light turns on behind her, she knows for a fact that it did because she could see the door when she walked in the building, or in the room rather. I would be gone. I ain't staying there. I ain't going in there to turn the light off. I ain't talking to my mother anymore. I'm leaving. Like, I'm done. That's it. I'm checking out. That's it. So, the fact that she even stays in the house is outrageous. Outrageously ridiculous. And on top of that, even if she was going to stay in the house, all right, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she's got nowhere else to go. Sure, fine. She stays in the house. Why are you still listening to the audio when you know that it's possessed, haunted, something? Like, you know for a fact that it is because lights are turning on in your house and the faucet's turning on in your house. So why are we still listening to it? Like, what? Why are we doing this? What is this? What is the purpose of this? And the movie doesn't really give you anything. There's not even a straw to grasp at as to why we are still continuing with this episode. And going on to the episode, how can they possibly record the episode for like 10 minutes? I'm not even kidding. The actual podcasts in this movie maybe take up the first two that I'm talking about. The first two instances of them filming a podcast take maybe 20 minutes of screen time. So you're telling me that in 20 minutes of screen time, they can push out an entire episode before Friday. They upload an episode every single Friday, and they recorded for 20 minutes. Most podcasts are like an hour long. And it's not like the Undertone podcast doesn't have pretty high production value. Like, they have decent recording equipment, an intro song, pretty good audio. Like, why are they recording for 20 minutes? And how are they so scared? Like, they do this for a living, basically. And they're, like, terrified of it. Like, and whatever. Like, that's fine. But they just do not act like this is something that they've done for a long time as well. And then you also have the problem of the get into character bit. So throughout the movie, there are instances where Evelyn and Justin will get too scared of something, and then they'll get too scared, and suddenly they'll go, we need to get back into character. And they'll do this bit, and they'll say, we need to get back into character. And then they will behave precisely the same way that they did before they said it. It changed absolutely nothing about them. It was redundant, and it was unnecessary. So there's just so many logical gaps and plot holes and incoherent nonsense in this movie, but that's not to say I didn't like it. I want to at least give it something. So I did like this movie. I think it does have a lot of good scare factor, and in general is very entertaining. I gave it a 7 out of 10 on my first watch, and I thought that was a pretty reasonable rating for it. And then I watched it again, and I was like, okay, my plot inconsistencies are really hurting this movie, so I'm going to drop it down a little bit. So I went for a 6 out of 10 or a 3-star on this one. Like I said, plot inconsistencies really dogpiled on this movie and brought it down for me. The scares are very good, especially on a first watch. I think if you are going to watch this movie, definitely the Dolby experience is the way to go. Maybe even just wait for it to come to streaming and watch it with headphones at home might be an even better way to watch it. But, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say about Undertone. It's a fine movie. If you like horror, you'll probably get something out of it, and I hope you all enjoyed. Totally forgot to mention the best part of this entire movie. I don't know how this slipped my mind. The best part of this entire movie is that Baba Black Sheep rendition. Oh my god, it's so good. That is the catchiest shit I've ever heard in my whole life. Good lord. Anywho, hope you enjoyed. See ya.